Okay, welcome back. Second class on the Rav Noah Weinberg's 48 Ways to Wisdom. We're starting our second class right now on Shemiat HaOzen, effective listening. Got my son with me here, a little bit risky, but he wants to learn some Torah. He's here with me. So let's do this. Here we go. Shemiat HaOzen, effective listening. Now, we learned in the past year, we talked about the importance of focusing and learning to train ourselves to be able to concentrate for long periods of time. And that way when we're learning. Now, this also applies when we're listening. We have to work on training ourselves to be able to listen while actually paying attention, not just hearing, also listening. And not spacing out, as we say, learning to be a good listener. And what does it mean to be a good listener? It means to, first of all, if you're having a conversation with someone, taking in what the other person is saying, not just formulating your next point, to really hear what they're saying in its entirety, and to really listen carefully, because a lot of terms, which we'll get into, are very vague, and takes a good listener to be able to understand, what the other person's saying. Are I misunderstanding them? Are they overly generalizing? Things like that. So there are tricks for learning how to learn effectively, which Rav Noach talks about in this second way of acquiring Torah, which is effective listening. So and it says effective listening is a very difficult skill. Okay, when someone is listening, we've always got other things going on in our mind, and it takes also focus and building up the skill of being able to really concentrate on listening to a person speaking. There are many times where we're able to listen to things while, let's say, we're exercising or cleaning the house, things like that, where we can put on a Torah class or music, things like that, where we can use that time where we're doing something to learn something while we're exercising or cleaning, things like that, are good times for listening. Again, we have to know when to multitask effectively, so that we can learn while doing, let's say, more mundane things, but also not overly multitask, so that so that we lose focus, basically. So that's a fine line right there between how much we should multitask. But in any case, we talked about this idea of wasting time when learning, and this is a big concept for Rav Noach, is making the most of our time. Time is so precious. So same thing when we're listening. If two people are just talking at each other, not listening to each other, just saying their point of view, then they're essentially wasting their time, because they're both just saying what they feel and not listening to the other person, and nothing is being accomplished from this conversation. Now, if two people are having a conversation where they're really taking in what the other person is saying and trying to come to some truth through their conversation, then that's a very productive thing. And that's what we want, is productivity in our conversations, interactions with people. Again, don't be thinking of your answer to someone's, while a person's speaking, which is a habit that I know I have, and we all probably do. And that just to say a word on what's mentioned many times in Pirkei Avot. Also, many of our what's called Sifrei Musar, our Torah books that talk about working on ourselves, is that silence is very important. To be silent sometimes is better than just speaking, freely. We have to know when to really listen to a person, not just speak. So here we go. Rav Noach talks about something called defining your terms. Now, here's a little story, a nice little story. It says, so someone was talking to Rav Noach, and he said, they call this the Holy Land, referring to Israel. I've been up north, down south, Yerushalayim, Masada, all over, and there's nothing holy about this place. And so Rav Noach said to this person, so tell me, are you a bafoof stick? What's that? The person said. Just answer the question. Are you a bafoof stick or not? And they said, how can I answer that when I don't even know what you're talking about? So tell me, what is holiness? Is holiness angels flapping their wings down the street in rainbow colors of light while swirling in and out of the rocks? How can you make any statement about whether or not this land is holy if you don't know what holiness is? And so that's a nice little idea. The bafoof stick is sometimes, you know, we use a term and, you know, it's not really properly known what that term is. And we see that a lot, I guess, in the news referring to Israel. You know, Israel is under Israeli occupation. Palestinians are living in an apartheid state. Now, what does that mean, occupation? What's apartheid? What's Palestinian? You have to, you know, dig deeper into each of those terms because those could all be kind of general terms and interpreted in different ways. Just a few more examples like that. Last one is, you know, people often say observant Jews are so intolerant. So what's the definition of tolerance? You have to first define tolerance before you can say something's intolerant. And here's another one. I'm in love and I think I want to marry her. So what's the definition of love? And what's the definition of marriage? Okay, so defining terms is a good thing to do in a conversation and to come to a real truth, which is what we're trying to do through listening. And let's see. So another thing is when people speak, there's a common tendency. He calls this the I, you, he game. Okay, so a person, when they're talking to themselves, will give themselves definitely the benefit of the doubt. Let's say you're driving with a guy in a car, as an example he gives. He's driving crazy fast down a mountain road, swerving in and out, driving like a maniac, right? Now, you, if you ask the driver, what are you doing? You know, he'll probably say, I'm brave, you know, I'm a good driver. You know, I know what I'm doing. So give himself the benefit of the doubt. If I say to his face, you know, how he's driving, I might say, you know, you might want to slow down a little bit, you know. Obviously, I'm thinking slow down a lot, but, you know, to speaking directly to another person to their face, you might tone it down a little bit. And if you're talking to your friend afterwards about what happened, you say, the guy was driving like a maniac. He almost killed us. You know, so basically know that often people will speak like this, which is an important part in, again, we're learning skills here on how to listen. And I heard a Torah class recently about someone who helps the police investigate criminals, reading body language and hearing their testimony and things like that. And he was saying that today people have lost this skill a lot in really being able to read people. And so anyway, we should be attuned to the terms that people are using. And maybe if you know how to do it a little bit, maybe some Rabbanim do actually study things like body language, things like that, which are also important in understanding a person. Yeah. So let's see. There's often like a misconception that in a Torah lifestyle, it's dull and boring, and it's intolerant and closed-minded, and it's very old-fashioned. But you know, we know that actually the opposite, the exact opposites are actually true. So so it's important to find truth, to really find truth, and dialogue is a good thing. Definitely a good thing. And that's the whole point of yeshiva. Actually, when I remember first went to yeshiva, I was just amazed by how the idea is to really talk things over and come to truth on your own, not just blindly believe in Hashem, that this works because of this. You have to come to your own truths a little bit too through through dialogue. Very, very important. And like we're talking about, just to bring it back to our main point here, is learning how to really listen. Because if we learn from other people, we can become very, very wise people, just from paying attention in class versus not paying attention in class. If you pay attention, you can just learn so much wisdom. But yet it's, again, as mentioned at the beginning of the chapter, a very hard skill to pay attention to people. But yet we're also learning skills here on how to pay attention, yet not necessarily wholeheartedly believe everything a person says, but try to give a person a benefit of the doubt. Like we believe in Torah that you should really give the benefit of the doubt, but to try again to look into the terms that are being used and to make things more clear. So let's see here. This is a good one. Verbalizing what you learn. Okay, so if you heard something, the best way to really internalize it is for you to speak it out, and to hear it yourself, not just reading something in a book and it stays quiet, to hear it, to say it, verbalizing. And that's why if you go into a Beit Midrash where people are really studying Torah, there's a lot of noise, and it's very different than a library. But in a library, you're learning to, in a Beit Midrash, people are trying to internalize things really into the soul, into the heart. And that's why it's really important to say things, because it's shown that really makes a point stick into our memory better. Okay. So basically, just to sum up, listening is acquired skill. We need to work on it. We need to work on our focus while listening. I remember in high school sitting in classes and sometimes I just could not focus. And I feel like with time I've gotten better at it, but it's a skill that's hard for us, but we can improve it, and find tactics that will help us, maybe drinking water throughout, or getting ourselves more comfortable, things, work on our ability to focus while listening. Learning to define terms so that, we can really come to truth through defining terms properly, through the examples that we gave. And verbalizing things out loud will really help us remember things better. So say things out loud. And when you learn something new, teach it. That's another concept in Torah, is that, we learn something, right away teach it over, because that will help it be ingrained within us. So that is the second of the 48 ways. Shemiat HaOzen. The next one would be Arichat Sfatayim. So saying it out loud. More on the topic of saying things out loud and verbalizing it. So that's for next time. Thanks a lot, and take care.